Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Bechard. I'm a public health manager for Moms Clean Air Force, and we are a national organization of over 1.6 million parents, grandparents, caregivers, and people who care about kids, united to protect children from the intersecting threats of climate change and air pollution. And I'm really honored to be joined today by my friend Laura Carter Robinson about some new resources that she's created with the Climate Mental Health Network on how to support children and youth through extreme weather. And I'm Laura. Laura, I'm wondering if we can start off by having you telling us a little bit more about who you are and about the Climate Mental Health Network.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me today, Elizabeth. It's really great to be here to talk about these resources. And I'm a clinical psychologist who works at the intersection of climate change and mental health. And I was really happy to work with Climate Mental Health Network on these resources to help families and other adults who are helping kids going through extreme weather events as are becoming much more common and frequent these days. So Climate Mental Health Network is a great national nonprofit that works with climate change and mental health and works with kids and teens, as well as helping parents know ways to help them as well.
Yeah, Climate Mental Health Network does really great work. I'm imagining that many people watching this might have had the experience of seeing weather alerts on their phone or on the news about a hurricane coming or a strong storm that's in the forecast or even a wildfire that might be getting more and more intense and wondered, how to support the kids in their lives during such a moment. And as you were saying, because extreme weather is getting more and more frequent and intense, more and more parents, caregivers are thinking about what it might mean to prepare for extreme weather too. And so I'm really excited about the resources that you have created. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about what makes preparing for extreme weather so important for children's mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is so crucial, and really just to can't emphasize that point enough, how much preparation matters. And it's something really that a lot of us as individuals and families don't do. We often intend to do it, but then we never get around to it. And so it's one of those things, though, that really makes a difference in terms of increasing our chances of being safer during any of these extreme weather events. And so, sort of at a simple, really basic level, that helps children's mental health right there. But on top of that, from a mental health standpoint, preparing helps because it's something that we can do. And, it feels so scary, right? When there are things that just feel out of control, unpredictable, which is how extreme weather events feel and how they're experienced. And that's true for adults as well as kids, that can be really scary. But for kids, so much already of what's going on in the world is out of their control, of course, just because they're younger and so they don't have the power that adults do, and they're reliant on adults. So just sort of sitting there waiting for, an event that's about to happen that's dangerous, like a severe storm that's on its way or whatever, can feel really bring on a sense of powerlessness and helplessness and that kind of thing. So when you prepare, you're taking some control back, and that feels good, in and of itself. It also increases kids' sense of agency, and that is really linked to, that's sort of the feeling of being able to act in the world and make a difference and have some consequence and see that something has been accomplished through their action. And so that decreases anxiety when they kind of know that can make a difference. It increases resilience, it decreases stress. So that all really, of course, connects to all kinds of great mental health outcomes right there. And it also just makes scary situations more predictable when you have a safety plan, because you can just sort of carry out the plan. So at bottom line, that's part of feeling secure, and feeling secure is, helpful for mental health. So, extreme weather events are so destabilizing and so frightening. And so anything we can do to kind of increase security in that way is beneficial to mental health for kids. So I want to add to, one thing that's important to think about when we're thinking about preparing and helping kids' mental health is to think about the diversity of different types of kids and kids' experiences, and so these resources are really general because they're for a wide variety of people. So I really want to encourage people to think about their own families too, and kind of how there might be additional things that they want to add and think about as they're going through this. So whether that's kids with who are medically complicated, kids who are neurodivergent, kids with disabilities, maybe situations where there's a language barrier and families can't really access all the information they need. Those are things just to keep in mind, when preparing as well. So, and all of this is not to say that extremely dangerous things aren't going to happen when we prepare, because of course they can, and they do, but we just increase our odds all the way around. And we also just increase the odds of better mental health, even when things do happen, if we've kind of gone through this part.
Yeah, I so appreciate your perspective on this because I can definitely relate to what you said. I think in the beginning of that, of like having really good intentions and then just
Yes.
never actually getting around to the nuts and bolts
Yeah.
of all the preparedness steps that would be good to take. And I can think of many folks in my life who are in that same boat
Yeah.
of good intentions, but just haven't found, the wherewithal to just actually do the preparation steps. And so one of the things I really love about these resources is that it sort of lays some concrete things out that we can do in very simple terms. And so I'm wondering if you can just walk us through the resources and show us what's available and how we can use these resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Let me get my screen shared for you here. Give me 1 second and I'll be right there. Okay. So yes, just to think here about sharing these preparation resources. And when we are thinking about this, kind of just going through what you'll find on this sheet is about explaining why you're preparing. It's really key for kids to not be in the dark when if you're going around the house kind of preparing for something and they don't know what's going on. That is anxiety provoking. So you just need to be really straightforward here and pragmatic in letting them know this is just one of the things people do in life. We prepare. It's like wearing a seatbelt in the car, and it doesn't mean that something bad is going to happen. It just means that we take precautions in life so that we can be safe. So if you live in a higher risk area, so this would be an area where, for example, you're really prone to fires, for example, or hurricanes, something that it's pretty typical that would come by or be a high risk factor. It's important to really normalize this for kids even more, to say like these things happen here. And so we do these things to prepare. So that really just helps kids feel like, you're doing things just to be on the safe side, but that is nothing to kind of worry about, if that makes sense. And when we look here as well at staying steady, that's the second bullet point here, or the second bold point here. Kids really do look to trusted adults to know how to feel, and they really absorb, as any parent knows, right? They really absorb our moods and our states of mind. And so, if you're feeling panicked, and you might, but if you're feeling panicked and that's coming out, they're likely to feel the same way. And so, trying to stay on an even keel to the best of your ability is helpful and really important. And staying emotionally connected to kids is really key as well. So as we have here, sort of some examples of how to stay emotionally connected as you're kind of explaining kind of what's going on. And then looking here at include kids in preparations when it's safe to do so. So there are all kinds of ways to do this in advance, so far before the storm is coming. So we're talking about putting go bags together as a project at home with your family or at school or things like that. And even really young kids can help with that. They can pick out things that they would like to put in a go bag or take with them if you have to leave the house. And then as you get closer to something, so when a storm is rolling in, for example, or wildfires are threatening, and you're maybe having to evacuate or something like that. Having safe jobs for kids can be really helpful. For younger kids, it's really key to know that in the chaos of this, you have to keep them safe, right? That's really important. And there's lots of stuff sometimes moving around, and you don't want anyone to get hurt. But when you have older kids who can help with certain jobs that are safer, helping pack the car or things like that, that can really contribute to a sense of agency as well and feeling connected and in control. And then keeping it comforting, I can't really emphasize enough how important this is for most kids that, it really just having a stuffed animal, a favorite doll or a lovey or whatever, or blanket, anything that really is comforting to them to take with them. It can be huge. And also creating a safe space in your home. If you've got like a hurricane shelter or something like that, or a tornado shelter, you can make that really cozy. And that makes a real difference for kids for sure, as opposed to just sort of a dark basement. Even just creating a little cozy corner with a few blankets, even something really minor like that can make a real difference. And when we're looking at here at watching out for media exposure, so this is a big one. Media exposure can be traumatizing, and that's particularly true for young children. It can be for anyone, to be honest, but for younger children, they don't always have the capacity developmentally to understand whether something is happening right now or right outside the door, or if it's happened 20 times because that's how many times it got shown on the news, or is each warning a new fire, that sort of thing. And so it can be really intense. So the more you can keep media away from young kids, the better. For older kids, you can get into a situation where if you were to sort of keep it away, it might make it more enticing. And so it really there you want to have some conversations about how problematic it can be to watch and help them learn how to manage it appropriately. And then having a pet plan is really important so that kids don't feel worried about what's going to happen to pets if something were to happen. And so that can help them just feel reassured in that way as well.
I know my kids would be very concerned about the pets, the cats in our house. So
Yeah,
that would be huge thing weighing on their hearts and minds and such a big, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, for sure.
these are so helpful to see laid out so clearly and like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can this. Like, I love the practicality of this. And I know that there are
Right.
also some tip sheets on what to do during an event. And I'm wondering if in just a few minutes, with a few minutes left, if you could just walk us through some of those resources briefly. We'd love to see
Yeah.
those too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go over to looking at hurricanes and destructive storms because these resources for hurricanes and destructive storms really overlap a lot with the ones for wildfires and floods. So you can really extrapolate. And so anyone who's listening and thinking about those can certainly take everything from this and apply it as well, even though there were some minor differences that you'll see. And then we'll go over just a couple of extra points when it comes to heat, because there's a little bit about heat that makes things a little bit different because it's just a little bit of a different experience. So just looking at this quickly, so focusing on safety and survival. So the first bold point here. So I just want to emphasize there that this is obvious, I think, to most people, right? But I think it's really important when we think about mental health that really feelings and coping matter. But this is first. Safety and survival comes first. And so if you are in an emergency situation, that's not the moment to be processing feelings. It can, that can come later. So if you're in a moment of literal survival, that you're going to be really focused on that, and that also helps kids see that is your focus, and that matters too, because they know then you're going to put their safety first and that helps them feel better. So evacuating, these kinds of things, again, good for kids' mental health because they can trust that you are taking care of the situation. So, in terms of explaining the situation, the next bold point there, really, it's similar to explaining, like we talked about, with preparation. As adults who might be kind of preoccupied with trying to handle the situation here, and sometimes kids can kind of get left trying to figure things out, and that can be pretty unnerving for kids and kind of anxiety provoking, so and confusing too. So just explaining what's going on, again, kind of pragmatically and matter of factly, and keeping it simple and making sure to share it at sort of an appropriate developmental level so that it's reaching them in a good way and is not overburdening them with too much advanced information or too intense information. And then the second bullet point under that is to tell them when danger has passed and they are safe. That does not always happen. People don't always think to do that because as adults we're like, oh, phew, it's over. But kids may not realize that and they may hold on to that fear of like, oh, is this still happening, much later. So important to do there as well. And then again, being a source of comfort and reassurance. So letting kids know, that you care and you're really an anchor for kids because things can be so chaotic in extreme weather events. And so being an anchor and sort of a, center of calm in the storm really matters. And so even if you're evacuated to a shelter or something like that, where it is more chaotic, it's noisy, there are a lot of people, that even just creating a little space together, where there's sort of a center of emotional calm is really, it's really important. So that's something to know, that it matters and helps kids sort of feel steady themselves in that. And then leading by example, the next point there, just being aware. Being aware is the first, I think, piece of this. That having knowledge that we tend to react more strongly under stress and more reactively under stress is key. So kind of, excuse me, when we do that, kids react also. We may not see them react. It might be an external reaction. It might be internal. They may be carrying around something about that makes them feel bad and that contributes to them feeling stressed or unhappy during this whole thing. So trying to stay steady is really important for sure. And you can model healthy coping a little bit about that. And then just to emphasize, if you do have to raise your voice ever to keep a kid out of danger, to explain later that you weren't angry. And, this is something that can come up in the chaos of, again, when things are happening. It's inevitable that, voices might be raised, things like that. And there could be a dangerous situation where you genuinely do have to sort of, shout to keep someone out of danger. And so, but a kid may not understand that they didn't do anything wrong or that you weren't angry. So helping them understand, so they don't feel guilty and that kind of thing. And then media exposure, again, like we kind of covered before, same ideas there, I think, on that. And then just being emotionally available, that being, when you are in a safe place to be there to answer questions, and I think it's important to know that sometimes people feel like, you know, if people don't talk about what they've gone through, that is going to be traumatic. And yet, in fact, that's not the case. That sometimes people, so it's important to not push kids to talk. It's really more about being there, offering opportunities for them to talk and things like that, but never forcing it because people do this in their own way at their own time. So, and then just to quickly go over to heat if we have a quick moment
We
for
have
that.
maybe 1 minute left.
Okay, sounds good. I'll just add here then to connect with others because it can be lonely when you're cooped up inside and help kids get some cooling activities and blow off some steam. And then prioritizing sleep and routine here down at the bottom because that's a big one that gets disrupted. And that is a big thing for mental health, obviously. And that's important for sure.
Yeah, we've definitely experienced that in our house. This week has
Yeah.
we've been the going a little bit stir crazy, being cooped up indoors together.
Yeah.
This is all so helpful, Laura. Thank you so much. I really hope that everyone watching will take a look at these resources and look at them more in depth and think about what they might mean for your own family. But again, Laura, thank you so much for joining us and to you and Climate Mental Health Network for creating these incredibly helpful resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I want to just quickly say, to remind people that since you don't always have power or cell service when something is going on, to download these now and print them out so that you have them and put them in your go bag or somewhere else. So don't wait to do it when it's happening.
It's a great tip. I'm going to go do that today.
Sounds good. Great.
Thank
So
you
thanks
so
so
much.
much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.